Okay, this is Kal Kat, and I've decided to quickly review some Kevin Smith movies in the past because I was inspired by watching Red Letter Media reviewing 10 Cloverfield Lane, and then and another movie called Him, Her, and Me, Him, and Her, which was another one of those Reitman films, and I decided to. Since Me, Him, and Her reflects Chasing Amy, I decided to vicariously go to another 1990s movie, Clerks, the Kevin Smith movie that quintessentially nailed the 90s generation slacker comedy thing as a little bit better than actually Linklater in the 90s in the same period with Slackers and Dazed and Confused. In Clerks is about two working schlubs in New Jersey who work at a video store / convenience store, like a 7-Eleven. It's called a Quick Stop. It's the genesis of all of their Jay and Silent Bob stuff. It's the genesis of all of their other the thing. Jay and Silent Bob are basically a big fat silent guy and a long skinny motor mouth guy. It's actually in real life they're reversed. Kevin Smith does all the talking, and Jay doesn't talk very much. But the characters in the movie they talk. Part of the reason for them talking all the time is they're on pot, and yes, it's a pot comedy movie series thing. The two clerks that are working in the store though are not actually on drugs. They're just really really hyper and caffeinated. And what's funny about this movie is, as Kevin Smith and his buddies filmed this movie on a shoestring budget back in the 90s, very low budget, or they worked. They literally filmed this. They were allowed to film this movie in an actual establishment at night. Apparently, they didn't care. That they were making this sort of film school sort of movie in 1994. Around the same time, 2 years earlier, my friends and I had filmed our first movie, which was Starcrackers, 92. That didn't come out for many, many years. Kevin Smith's, of course, came out in theaters. That's at first in the film festival circuit and then on to theaters. But it made most of its money on video. Everybody bought this movie and watched it in the 90s. My nephew was a big fan of the Kevin Smith and could go in more detail. The premise here with Clerks was, these guys are talkative. Dante and Randall are talkative, and they're in there. Jay and Silent Bob are outside causing trouble, and these two guys are the clerks. They're inside, sort of reversing their characters. Basically, what Kevin Smith and his group nail is the archetypes that have been going on since the days of silent film, since the days of Charlie Chaplin, Stan Laurel and Hardy, and the Smothers Brothers, and a little bit of Marx and stuff like that. A little later, Karl and the Marx, not Karl Marx Marxist, but the Marx Brothers kind of deal. So their characters are basically very classic archetypes, and thus pop culture is referenced a lot, including Star Wars. Quite a lot. His fantasy. This is a brief review of Clerks because I want to go on to some of his other movies. But suffice it to say, if you watch this movie, it's quite a raunchy dialogue, but it's funny. It takes some getting used to the humor. I would say if you're not an aficionado of Kevin Smith stuff and the sort of witty banter talk, it's funny in the sense that it's witty banter. It is not haha funny. There are like 2 or 3 scenes that are haha funny. The rest of it is pretty much what we would call now a dramedy. Mostly a drama with some comedy jokes in it. I would call it a dark comedy almost. There's a death at one point they reference in there. There's a funeral for somebody else they reference in there. There's a bunch of other things that crazy things that happen. And this is the movie that features the infamous scene in which Dante and Randall are discussing the Death Star and all the contractors that were killed on the Death Star when it got blown up. That's the classic tales in Clerks. That's where it was from. This roofing guy comes in and says, yeah, that's totally what happened. Yeah. The scary alternate ending was that apparently this bad guy comes in and kills them, which would mean there would be no more sequels, so they cut that out. But yeah, the movie centers on them just talking over the period of a night about life, about New Jersey life, and stuff like that, and having a half sister lives in New Jersey, and her niece and the nieces and stuff like that, and having other connections to that. But having only been there when I was 13, I don't have any connections now. But but the Kevin Smith stuff is cool, and yeah, they act like that in New Jersey. They do. Another New Jerseyite who you might recognize from the internet is Kevin Strawley, better known as the LA Beast. He is also from New Jersey. That's where he's getting that sarcasm from. It's very, very, very back east sort of, kind of, I'm gonna do something, kind of deal, Jersey, but yeah, Jersey. Don't say Jersey though. It's Jersey. Yeah, you gotta pronounce it right. Unless you're Yiddish, in which case it is Jersey. But anyways, so much of this, so much of that. It could be Italian too. Oh yeah, Jersey. So yeah, I had nephews that have been and nieces that have been to the East Coast. So that are popular. Yeah. And so yeah, Kevin Smith's The Clerks. Yeah, and got nothing really more about it. You can rent it and see it on video or whatnot. Probably stream it somewhere. Clerks. One of Kevin Smith's first movies. Recommended. Go and see it. Clerks. Yeah. So.